Welcome to Locally Sourced. I'm your host, Armanda Famiglietti. There are more than 100,000 people living in Putnam, and some of them are creative, artistic, and persistent. And I have one of them as my guest today, Andrea Sadler. I have to read this because she's so many things. Andrea Sadler is a Canadian filmmaker, actress, writer, artist, producer, director, and founder of Dragonfly Films. She lives in Cold Spring, New York, with master storyteller Jonathan Crook. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you, Armanda.
So let's get to the important things first. Your documentary, The Sacred Run, The Lotus and the Feather, will be screened on Tuesday, June 20th by the Westchester Holistic Network from 7 to 9 at the Itchell Center, is that correct? 23 Wilson Street, Hartsdale, and Native American drummer Donna Cohane, the lead drummer for the Spirit of Thunderheart, will also be there. And there's going to be Q&A about the film. I guess people are going to be asking you questions. What else can people expect when they go to that screening?
Well, this is the Westchester Holistic Network. They host different speakers, and at this one we will be beginning with from 6:30 to 7, there'll be like a networking opportunity. And then at 7, how I usually present the film is they introduce me, then I introduce the Native person who always comes. I always invite a Native person to my screen events. So Donna will be leading an opening blessing song. And the reason I do that is to set the tone for the film so that people are in a space that they're open to receive the information of the film. Mm-hmm. And then following the 55-minute film, there'll be a Q&A with myself. And after that, I invite the audience members to come join in the circle where we pass a talking feather or talking stick and basically share in response to the film, but in response to where they're at in their life, in the moment, and what's happening, just what's gratitude and prayers. And I found that in that circle space is a beautiful energy that flows around, rather than people just coming to watch a film and then leaving. I was guided to do a circle and always invite a Native elder to every screening. And for me, it's really important. Creating a circle is about creating community, and also it's a chance for us to really honor each other and not just see the back of someone's head and then leave with the information from the film, but the film inspires people and, brings up emotions and thoughts. So I like to have that in a sharing circle after, and then Donna will share some of her wisdom and tradition as well.
Right. So I'm sure that makes the experience for the audience a lot fuller, because not only are they seeing the film, but then they have immediate opportunities to talk about it. Instead of going home in the car and saying, "Oh, this is the part I liked," or whatever, they get to share with each other. So that's really terrific. And I believe that there's a small requested donation at the door, right?
Yes, we're recommending a suggested donation of $10. This film is a labor of love, and it took me 9 years to make. I didn't do it to get rich off of. I did it to raise consciousness. So the donation helps me continue. Mm-hmm.
Well, let me read a description of the film that I saw on your website. Kind of a little teaser here for you folks, but. Native wisdom is woven with the Japanese traditions on this remarkable physical and spiritual journey of a diverse group of ages who voyaged 4,000 kilometers along the Sea of Japan to carry the simple message that all life is sacred. And this is a journey film, right? And it's a bringing together of cultures, which is really interesting. We have an excerpt of the film, thanks to you for bringing it. Can you set this up? What are we going to see when we see this clip of your film?
Well, this clip of the film is basically the introduction part of the film and gives you a introduction to the combination of the native aspect and the Japanese Buddhist aspect as well. And so you'll see runners and the setting and hear the purpose of the run with Dennis Banks, who will be speaking.
Okay, so let's have a look. The Sacred Run, the Lotus, and the Feather.
After living in Japan for 3 years, I read in the Japan Times about the Sacred Run, an annual international run for peace and environmental awareness founded by Native Americans. To commemorate the 50th anniversary of the atomic bombings, the 4,000-kilometer run would end in Hiroshima on August 6th and then in Nagasaki on August 9th.
Sacred Run is a continual prayer from morning till night, and that prayer is about understanding our relationship with Mother Earth.
Well, that clip was really inspiring. You felt that you had to make this film, right? But no matter what, it wasn't easy. So there's a very interesting story behind the story of making this film. Can you tell us something about that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I'm actually writing a book about the journey leading up to the Sacred Run and the journey of making the Sacred Run. So I have lots of stories to tell about that. But basically, I started this film because I was deeply concerned about what's happening on the planet, to the environment, and also just with respect to how we treat each other and how we treat all life. Mm-hmm. So I was looking to make a film when I lived in Japan for 3 years, and when I read in the Japan Times that the Native Indians were coming, the First Nation people were coming to run for peace and environmental awareness, I just knew that's what I was supposed to do. And I wanted to make this film not from my head, ego. I wanted to make it be much like a channel for the message, because I'm not Native, I have Scottish, English, French roots. But I'm very drawn to the First Nation wisdom and teaching and culture and spirituality. So when I heard that they were coming to Japan, I just knew I had to do it. And I basically, I'm a meditator. I meditate, I have a practice every day. And I've always had a very strong connection to spirit, not so much in a religious way, but just in a spiritual way. And I really set my intention that I would be a channel for the message. And I received guidance in making the film through my dreams. And one of my favorite stories to tell is I had called Sacred Run Japan office to ask whether I could make this film. And they said, well, we're sorry, but Dennis Banks is traveling. We'll pass the message on to Dennis that you're interested. Well, I was naive. I just thought, oh, they're going to call me back when he gets the message. And I waited and waited and waited and waited for 10 months, actually. And then I had
You're so patient.
Well, I kept working while I was waiting. Like, I proceeded as though the film was going forward. So I was busy doing pre-production anyways. And but I had this dream that there were 3 little girls telling stories, and I remember thinking how important it is to tell stories. And then there were these toy frogs that were jumping around, and a friend of mine who had just died while he was making a film about faith in the dream, he was blessing my film production and saying, like, this is a good thing, go forward with and these frogs I knew were part of his message. And then I had a dream that this burning bush fell in this village, and it was like a semicircle, and this boy poured water, and then the flames went out. And then I woke up with this feeling that Milton was with me in this film production. His spirit was helping me. But also I just felt this inspiration. I have to call the Sacred Run office right now. And I called, and it turned out they forgot. The message never got to Dennis. And they said, we're so sorry. But actually, Dennis is coming to Japan next week, and if you'd like, you could try to meet him. So I went to meet him at this location. And it took him a long time to give me approval because, understandably, they're, concerned about appropriation of their culture, and he wanted to make sure that I was sincere and that I was on the same page as, with respect to their traditions. So it took him a long time to approve the project, but I proceeded as though it was going to happen anyways. And we did not have a budget. We did not have, I didn't get the grant I wanted from Canada Council, but I was determined to do this. We had to do it, go forward anyway, full steam. So my crew worked for free. I worked for free, basically. And, we literally I made it on a wing and a prayer. And I like to share this story because so often people say, well, I can't do that because I don't have the money, I don't know how. Well, although I studied in film production, I had never made a documentary film. I didn't know anything about broadcast licensing or, acquisition fees. I didn't really know how to make a documentary film. I just did it. And the beautiful thing about being my own producer is that I had creative control over the film. So it gave me a lot of leeway to make it the way I wanted to.
And you had all that prep time when you thought you were waiting for a phone call to be responded to, right?
Yes, and I did a lot of research and a lot of it was trying to get money, but I also researched it. Dennis Banks is the American Indian leader who is the founder of the Sacred Run, and he started this. The first run was in 1977. And every year after that, they were running basically to carry the message that all life is sacred and carrying a message from village to village to get the message out.
And Dennis Banks, he has a long history as an activist, right, for American Indian rights. I remember as a child when his group, what was it, the American Indian Movement, took over Wounded Knee.
Yes.
And that was big news, and it was because the Indian nations had been fairly silent until that point. And so he made a huge impact, and he's still going strong, I assume, and you had a chance to work with him on this film, which is...
Yes, it's extraordinary, and, they have done this run every year since 77 was the first one, and then every year they ran in a different country. And they had run... I believe the first run was in Japan from Hiroshima and Nagasaki to Hokkaido. And Dennis was stationed at the naval base there in, I can't remember exactly, in Japan. And he witnessed the Buddhist monks being beaten for protesting the presence. And they weren't protesting, they were just chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. They weren't like aggressive.
Right.
And he witnessed these monks being beaten by the police. So
the Japanese
police. And he became friends with these monks over time. And in 1995, it was the anniversary of the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So he felt it was time to complete the circle, which is kind of like my dream. It was a semicircle, and it was time to complete the circle. So he did this run from Hokkaido to Hiroshima, then Nagasaki. And there were 80 people from 14 countries who joined the run. and we ran every day. A couple of days we rested.
You ran with the
I
group.
ran as well, and I told my crew, I didn't want to be a fly on the wall. I wanted to be a participant because I wanted to be part of it. I wanted to be part of my journey as well. And I said to my crew, like, if you want to be my crew, you know, we're not going to stay in hotels. We're camping with everybody else. We're eating with everybody else.
You were embedded, so
and
to
we're
speak.
running as well. That's really important that I wanted to experience the run. And so our crew, my crew, was only 5 people, which is crazy for a documentary.
Yeah.
We had, this is another little story, is that we had 50 rolls of film. I was very determined to shoot it on film because I didn't like how video looked back then in the early stages of video. And I just didn't have the money. I could only afford 50 rolls of film, and some of those rolls of film were donated. And we hadn't arrived in Kobe yet, and I ran out of film. And I had no money left in my bank. I put every cent I saved up for the film. And then I called this gallery who was showing my father's art. He came over and I organized a show for him. And my dear father said, whatever money I earn selling my paintings, I'll give you 50% for your film.
Wow.
So I called the gallery when we realized we were out of film. And I called the gallery and they said, your father just sold 3 paintings. I said, please send the money to Kodak, or Fuji, I think it was. And they sent the money to Fuji and I picked it up in Kobe.
Wow.
And
it's funny how things kind of fall into place when you're on the right path, right? Do you think that just sort of happens? And
I really believe when you set your intention for something, and I set my intention for good things.
Right.
So, the universe kind of supports you. And in magical ways, like after the film, I had literally not 1 red cent to get home. I had no job. I had no house anymore. I had, just these 50 rolls of film, or a few more, 55 rolls of film, and no money to get home and no money to finish it. And this dear friend of mine, Chingyo-san, who was a Japanese man who loved me, he was very supportive. I went to see him and I said, oh, it was fantastic, but I've run out of money. And he said, me Buddha, you Buddha. Everything, river, flower, trees, everything is Buddha. Now, he passed me this address book with $2,000 in it. Wow. And he says, now go home, make your film.
Tremendous.
And he said, me Buddha, you Buddha, everything Buddha. Now make your film and give it away, give it away, give it away. Because in Japan, there's a lot of giveaway.
Right.
And so it wasn't about the money. It was about the message. And at age 21, I've been very kind of in despair about what's happening on the planet. And I thought we were making headway. And this film is... The story in this film is part of a prophecy that the Native people have spoken about, that we're in the time of the 7th fire. And we're at the point where the Hopi prophecy is that we're at the point now where if we don't return to the path of the heart that's connected to the earth.
And this is American Indian, this isn't Japanese.
No, this is American Indian. That the Ainu people, they have their own, story, but it's related. There's parallels, and but basically, the Hopi prophecy is that if we don't return to the path of the heart, where we're connected, we're not, connected to our hearts, our heads, and our hearts connected to the land, we will self-destruct. And I made this film 1995. That's a long time ago, like 22 years, right?
Right.
And I really thought we would be, we are further along in many ways.
But we seem to be taking a step back.
But we've taken,
in this moment.
At this moment in time, we've taken many steps backwards.
Right.
But I don't believe that's how, I believe the consciousness of the majority is more in the forward, and that we are all connected, and people get that now.
Well, the arc of history always bends towards justice, right? As Martin Luther King said. So,
Yes.
so I hope that that this is a big success for you on the 20th. But filmmaking isn't the only thing you do. You also mentioned, and I mentioned, that you're a writer. You're working on a book. You have other current film projects in the works. I think that you do collaborate with your husband, Jonathan Crook, from time to time, who he's famous here in the Hudson Valley for his interpretations of Irving and other, locally folklore in the area. So what's coming up for you? You're working on the book and...
Well, right now we started doing a film production of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Jonathan does an amazing performance of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow at the Old Dutch Church.
Fantastic.
And fans were begging for a DVD copy of that. Yeah. So I was like, okay, we could do that. So we pulled it together. We did a GoFundMe campaign, and we're wrapping it up. I'm in the post-production stage. The editing's done, but we're doing the music score and the color correction. The DVD cover is being designed, but we're hoping to launch that this probably September will be the premiere.
Okay, so is it Jonathan standing, what we're used to seeing him interpreting the story, or is it like a real? Are there other people in it?
No, it's his one-man signature show, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And so we're doing that together, and we also want to put together some children's books with his stories. My whole life...
Is he a writer himself?
He's a writer as well. Okay. And myself, I always wanted to write children's books. So we started Fox and Crow Productions to get those books going as well.
Fox and Crow?
Fox and Crow. And
which one is which?
Jonathan's last name is Crook.
Okay.
So, the crow is, the raven is connected to the crow, but,
right.
And we just love foxes and crows, and it just sounded good.
It does, it sounds great.
But, we're looking forward to that. But I really want to get this film out more. The Sacred Run, the reason it's called The Sacred Run, The Lotus and the Feather, is because it weaves together the feather from the native culture, and the lotus is about the lotus flower and Buddhism coming up from the muck. The flower grows, and I think compassion is one of the biggest things I've learned in Buddhism, and I try to have compassion for where humanity is at right now, and I think it's really important to practice meditation or have a way to connect to the source. And that's one thing that I really learned in a personal level of making this film, is that we're connected to a divine source and energy. We're all energy. But there is a divine source that is guiding us. And if we just go lay on the earth or sit with your back against a tree, I've talked to trees many times, and Dennis Banks says in the film, if there's only one eagle left, you have a friend.
Wow, hopefully there will be more than one eagle left.
We are, we have a lot of work to do.
We have to be positive.
We have to be positive as well.
I would say that what's something's good that's happening for the environment in our world right now is that people are getting involved who weren't involved before.
Yes.
And I see that as an extremely positive thing.
Yes.
And so there really is, I think, reason for hope. And your film is one of, to see the cultures coming together, to see what people are willing to do to bring cultures together and to have this message. I think it's very inspiring. So you're doing quite a bit for us, and thank you very much, Andrea Sadler.
I feel like that's why I was born, is to carry this message. And the run is all about carrying the staff that they carry, that we carried in the run. It's I started this film in my 30s, and I'm now 55. And sometimes I get discouraged, but then there's younger people who will carry the staff. So the reason I made the film is to inspire people to, get involved, take action, do their own transformation work, and also reach out to the First Nation people, because there are sweat lodges, there are vision quests, there are gatherings, there's ceremonies. I'm going to a ceremony on June 10th. Actually, Sunday, I'm leaving for a 4-day ceremony in Wisconsin, and that's a spring ceremony. So I'll be all, filled with good energy on June 20th at the screening.
Well, we just have a few minutes left. I know it goes really quickly. So I just wanted to make sure that we remind everyone that the Westchester Holistic Network is sponsoring a screening of your film, The Sacred Run, The Lotus and the Feather, at 7 o'clock Tuesday, June 20th in Hartsdale. And we're going to show the address and the contact information, the phone number on the screen. I just want to thank you very much for not just coming on the show, but for everything you've been doing, probably for all your life, but certainly since 1995 when you made this terrific movie. And as always, I want to wish the crew here and give them all a big thanks for what you do every time you come and volunteer. I also want to shout out to Andy Campbell, who would have been here, but he's under the weather. So Andy, we want you to come back as soon as you can. And till next time, thanks for watching Locally Sourced.
Thank you, Armanda.